Hi there, this is Sophie B. Hawkins. Please look out for my new record and come to my show on December 18th at Rockwood Music Hall. I'm talking with Rabbi Sol Solomon on Dave's Gone By, UNC Radio.
Shalom, shalom. Is this Sophie B. Hawkins, please?
Shalom, Sol Solomon. How are you?
Oh, I am fine. How are you, my dear?
Very good, very well.
Oh, good. And we here in the neighborhood are doing so well this morning, talking to Sophie B. Hawkins, the singer, the songwriter. Yes, you all know her famous song, Damn, I Wish That I Was Your Lover. Not so crazy about using the word damn, considering what I do for my profession, but still, an incredibly catchy song. She's had other albums. She's had a whole life beyond that one song, and as a matter of fact, Sophie B. Hawkins is going to be appearing live in New York on Allen Street at a place called the Rockwood Music Hall on Thursday, this coming Thursday, December 18th at 9:30 in the evening. You can find out more about that at her website, sophiebhawkins.com. But better, you should listen right now because she's going to tell us about it. Again, shalom, Sophie. And the most important question is, you're working on a Hanukkah song?
Well, this is so interesting, Rabbi, because for years I've been dabbling in, I learned Hebrew, I can write Hebrew, and then I studied a little bit of Kabbalah, but then I decided I'm more conservative. So I'm not born Jewish, but I'm very, very fascinated in the Jewish culture, and more than that, the spiritual background that makes people Jewish. Backbone, I should say. So then I walked into this place called the Lab Shul in New York City, which is wonderful. And Naomi Les they acted out this amazing part, the part of, what is it?
Purim,
Esau, and who's the other guy with Esau with the soup?
Jacob and Esau with the fur on the hands and all that.
Jacob and Esau with the soup. And so they acted this out, Naomi and the rabbi. Anyways, and I thought, man, I've got to work with Naomi because it was so deep and it was such a creative take. I like when people do the stories from the Bible, but they make them real. And I can't even tell you all the things they did, but they acted like it was a group family therapy session, like we were in the family of Esau and Yaakov. So then I said, can you do a song with me at the Rockwood on the 18th? And she said, sure. And can you come to my thing about Judith? That whole Judith who beheaded the bad guy.
Oh, Bethulia or something like that. Yeah.
Right. So this whole thing is happening, and it's weird that I'm talking to a rabbi about my show, because strangely enough, a lot of I guess, what do you call it? The source of Jewish creativity is going to actually be coming through my work in a very clear way on this show.
Actually, my source of Jewish creativity is guilt and back pain. So I don't know.
I don't have that because I'm not Jewish, so I'm really lucky.
That's right. You can be physically healthy and move towards the Jewish. Were you raised in any kind of religious or more of an atheistic way?
Well, no, my parents are very spiritual, and I wouldn't say that it's interesting. The whole thing about converting to me is a more practical issue because of my son. That he would be brought up with rabbis such as yourself to guide him, and that I would have a stronger community, and be able to talk about moral issues and whatever. So it's more about guidance. But the whole thing about religion for me is very creative. My parents were not atheistic, but they didn't think one religion was better than another. They just thought we should explore everything and find out for ourselves what we wanted, and that's what we've all done. We're all very different, us children, and yet we're all really, actually in the core, very the same, that we respect and love and keep wanting to find the truth.
I like that. I mean, one religion is better than the others, Judaism, that's why they're chosen, but we make believe that we're all alike, and that everybody else is as good as we are. It's just a nice thing to do. And by the way, how old?
Right.
Your son Dashiell is how old?
He just turned 6.
Oh, so he's at bar mitzvah lessons are a long way away. You can, did he have the cut? Is he,
Yes, of course, he's circumcised.
He's well on his way. That's right. And you don't even have to get circumcised unless you go to Africa to one of those horrible villages, which I would not recommend. I don't even know what I'm talking about. This is Rabbi Sol Solomon here. We're talking with Sophie B. Hawkins, the songstress. You also mentioned rather slyly in your ID that we should be on the lookout for a new album, not The Crossing that you released back in 2012. That's already sort of an oldish album. What's this new thing coming along the pike?
I'm so excited because I'm meeting with producers, and I met with a genius producer. I hope everyone looks up when I say his name. His name is Fabrice Dupont, Fabulous Fab. He's such a musical genius, and he's right here in New York City on 2nd Street. And I think that we're going to start working, and I think that I'm very hopeful that we had a great meeting. So anyways, I have all these new songs, and now I have some support, and I'm getting to go in the studio and make a beautiful album out of these songs.
Are you moving in, I think I read somewhere that you're moving in some kind of a different direction musically on this, because we think of you as pop, a little bit on the rock pop, maybe jazzy side. Where do you think you're moving with the sound of this next one?
Well, the thing about working with a great producer that will be so good for me, because I haven't worked with a producer for many albums, and like The Crossing I did totally in my studio alone. I engineered it, I produced it, and that was really difficult. It was fun, but it doesn't give me as an artist much perspective. So now what I'm doing is I'm just making very simple demos of my song, piano vocal or guitar vocal, and then I'm putting them on the shelf, and then I played them for Fabrice, for instance. And we talk about, I'm very open to somebody helping me make a better flow. And not so much because I tend to be jazz and pop and rock and so many things at once. It's sometimes, some people love it, but I want to take my fans with me to a more cohesive place, if that makes sense. So to include everything from Damn, I Wish I Was Your Lover and As I Lay Me Down, by the way, As I Lay Me Down, which doesn't have a curse on it, is a much bigger hit than Damn.
Internationally or even in America?
Oh my God, internationally, my God, it still plays more, it always sold more. So anyways, you don't ever have to say that other word if you don't want to. Just say As I Lay Me Down.
Well, I can say darn, I wish I was your lover, or heck, I wish you would. See that? And you got the cuss sound, which is nice and harsh. So it gets the point across without using the D word. Of course, I use words like shit and fuck, so I don't really care.
Oh my God, are you on radio? I can't believe you.
Well, it's college radio, but, we get away with a little bit more. Plus, we bleep things when we have to. I'm kidding. But the point is, and as far as musically, the sound of having a cohesive sound, all I can say is clarinet, accordion, and the occasional kazoo will always do well, no matter what
Definitely
genre.
agree about accordion.
What about accordion? I'm sorry?
I definitely agree with you about accordion. I love the accordion. I love that klezmer sound. And there may be a klezmer-type song on this album. I'm not sure yet.
Well, you are a partial lesbian, so there you go. Oh, I'm kidding. I'm just joking.
That was funny.
Thank you so much. I try. And we make fun of these different instruments, but you came to almost blows with Sony over a banjo.
Isn't that insane? But you know what? It was really worth it. Listen to what a banjo symbolizes. It's the only instrument that was ever invented in America. And I know people go, oh, but the slaves invented it. Yes, they did. But they reinvented it in America as slaves. So it's a combination of African and American. But it was actually made here, and it's the only instrument that was ever actually invented and made here. So it's a real American instrument. So for that, I love it. And it's also an instrument of freedom, I think. So I fought for the banjo, and I was right. And, not so many years later, there's hits on the banjo. But at the time, Sony couldn't deal with it.
And I don't agree, because Neil Young had been using the banjo on certain songs, on songs that were album-oriented hits, if not, let's say, big hit singles. You hear it on Old Man. Certainly, Sony was the Pete Seeger's label for a million years. Who was thinking these things when they were fighting you?
I think that they were thinking of stockholders in Japan or something. I don't think the music business has been that focused for a long time. Hence the demise of the record companies. I mean, there's a few really great ones, Universal, etc. But I think Sony at that time was picking a silly fight instead of supporting an artist who had made smash hits, and sold many records. And that was the point in which my career really could have taken off. They were nitpicking on silly things like a banjo. By the way, and that song still plays all the time with the banjo in all kinds of places. I get a lot of royalties from that song. But anyway, so it was a dumb fight, and it turned out to be all about what you call principle, which are always fights that never have a good result.
Well, how did you end up releasing the song? Was it on your label? Was it on another label?
Well, I had to get off the label,
right.
and I got my masters back, and I got my re-recording restrictions lifted. So basically, they gave me that album, which they had spent a lot of money on. And I'll tell you, I wish we had worked it out. And I think that people always say that about stupid fights on principle. It's like with a family. It would have been so much better to work it out, for me, for sure.
Well, yeah, I mean, I don't know what the... because, yeah, as you've seen now in your previous album, having to do the whole thing from scratch in your... I mean, there's something to be said for a record company. You go in, they pay certain things.
There's everything to be said for it. It was my rebellious years, and like I said, I stood for something that was really antiquated. I wanted to be the singer-songwriter, the Joni Mitchell of me, my version of that. And it wasn't the times anymore to do that. But I hope that I represented something good for people. But for me, I took a big, it's difficult. But luckily, I'm still here. And I've learned from my mistakes. And I guess also, Rabbi, what I want to say is, even though they're mistakes, they were good mistakes. I really developed a tremendous amount of character and integrity by standing up for something I really did believe.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, it was a real legitimate... You are an artist. And speaking of artists, actually, I'm going to switch themes here, since you also brought up Joni Mitchell. You, Joni Mitchell, Tony Bennett, Bob Dylan, there's a thing. What is it about singers and songwriters who also paint? What's the deal with that?
Isn't that weird?
Yeah, why? What's the thing there?
Well, when I was sitting with Fabrice, the producer, I really heard how he paints with his productions and his arrangements, and I think what it is that music is so visual to us songwriters. Like, songwriters never have to study music to be songwriters, and yet we can do these really cool harmonies. We do these amazing... We do things that people go, how come you didn't study? But it's almost the antithesis of studying. But I think that's because we see songs visually, and then we can articulate them on the piano or whatever without studying because we know what we're looking for. And that same visual sense goes to painting, and painting is a big break. Like, it's so hard to write a song, anyone will tell you. People who say, even Paul Simon said there's no writing, there's just rewriting. And boy, is he right. Because you might write an idea and it sounds like it's amazing, but it's the rewriting that makes a song amazing. So then when you get to painting, it's such a relief.
Well, I mean, actually, I will take issue with some of what you said, because you will also get songwriters who say, I tossed that one off in half an hour, it was basically done. And then there's this other song I've worked on for 2 years. And that just works. What?
Right, but believe me, if how many songs are written, I know what that is. I can tell you. When I write a song in an hour, and it's happened, there have been 10 other songs that didn't take an hour before that were crap. And then the great song comes out, and it looks like it came out of nowhere.
Oh.
Because you had to write those 10 bad songs before that to make the good one come out.
Interesting. And some of the singer-songwriters today, they put out all the songs, and you have to pick out the one or two good ones.
Isn't that a shame? And that's why, it's so funny, this whole thing about streaming and content. Everyone has fallen into the trap because artists, and including myself, we have to put out so much stuff all the time that you put out crap. And then we wonder why people say, well, there's only one good song on the album. Well, there is only one good song on the album because you're not taking 2 years or 4 years to make an album anymore. You're constantly aware of putting something on the internet. And it's ruining everyone's sense of what is good. Although everyone can agree there's very little good, but there's a lot of stuff.
But at the same time, and since you are... in some ways, chief cook and bottle washer of your career, even now that you're moving past that with your own garage studio. But I've lost my train of thought. Uh-oh. What the hell question was I going to ask?
Well,
I forgot my question. Oy, shame on me.
It'll come back.
It will. They tend to. Wait, let me see if it's in my notes. Is it in my notes? No, it's not in my notes. All right, well... no, actually, yes, it was in my notes. But you have also taken things by the reins. I know I checked your Facebook page, and you're one of those people who update your Facebook page like several times a week. Do you enjoy doing that, or do you feel like, oh boy, if I want to keep my fan base, I can't just post every 3 months, by the way, catch me here, or, here's my new single?
Yeah, I have to be honest, I absolutely loathe posting. And I do it, and it's not that I loathe my fans. I actually don't call them fans, I call them peers. Because people who like my music are usually like me. They're very intelligent, and they like good stuff. So they're not my fans. My peers, I'm only doing it because I have to. What I would rather do is not post and just advertise when I have a show or something coming out. But I've been told, and it seems to be true, that I absolutely cannot survive if I don't do more. So I do it, but it's a real job. Not like songwriting, which is a fabulous job.
But I get that. I mean, everybody has to carve out. One of the people that was on this radio program that we had the pleasure of talking to was Jane Siberry, and for a while,
her.
Yeah, well, she's genius. But she was, making her own CDs for a while. I mean, literally folding the thing with the plastic. Her mother was helping her. I mean, this is a woman who was on Warner Brothers for a bunch of years. And she said, no, I'm going to take control of everything, which really meant literally everything.
I did that too. I totally get it. And I'm grateful that now I don't have a little support is a lot of support in this time. And I'm really grateful for it. And all of us artists who aren't super, super successful in the sense of selling millions of records, we've had to cut back in all kinds of places in our lives. And in some ways that gives us freedom as well, though, I have to say. Like cutting back on the rent or the mortgages and just simplifying everything to make it about the music. And that's kind of exciting about where I am now. There's a freedom with having stripped down.
But does your lifestyle, does your salary come basically from touring now, since records are almost free for everybody, unless you convince people to physically buy things on iTunes? I mean, what is your career financially? Is it having to tour or wanting to tour?
Well, that's such a good question. It's never been touring because, touring, I'm lucky that I don't come in the red. I come in the black in touring, which is good. I sell a certain amount of CDs, whatever. It more than what I pay for them, I get. But that would never support me. Only if I was 14 years old would that support me. What I've always, since I've written all my songs, is that I have the royalties. And I'm so lucky that my songs still play. And I get radio play internationally on new songs like From the Crossing and Wilderness and Timber. But basically, As I Lay Me Down and Lose Your Way, and those songs were such big hits that I get to...
And they still are, so that Sony still has to cut you a check, basically.
Yeah,
or ASCAP.
And I have to say, I have no bad feelings about Sony, actually, in retrospect. Because look what they did for me.
True.
They made me a star. I mean, they made my songs stars.
And do you... I mean, you've also... some artists would say, well, Tongues and Tales was back in 1992. And it was a wonderful album. It made me who I am. But I kind of wish I never had to do this song or that song again. I know I love my fans, and I know they love that song. But boy, I sure wish they would request all the songs off my last 2 albums and not the one from 25 years ago. Do you ever get sick of the stuff that you have to do?
No, I think artists are so weird when they say that, because I can acknowledge that, damn, I hate to say the word, but damn, I wish I was your lover. And as I was saying,
damn, there's that word, yes.
Yeah, they're badass songs. And they're better than probably anything I could ever write again. I hate to say it, but it's probably true. And before I walk on fire, all those songs on Tongues and Tales are amazing. I have to say that. So no, I don't mind singing them again. I love singing them again. And it's a really high bar I set for myself, because how could I write something better than As I Lay Me Down? It's almost impossible. So I try to I grow. I push myself. My new songs, some people like my new songs better, but certainly not everybody, and I wouldn't expect them to.
And also, you don't have the marketing push to be able to get a song on MTV every half hour, the same song, so that it becomes part of the public consciousness in the way that those songs...
I think if artists were really honest with themselves, they would recognize that not everything they do is as great as their biggest hits. Their biggest hits are biggest hits for a reason. That we hit moments, as artists, as people, we hit moments of genius. We don't know how we get there. We work like hell to get there, and when it happens, it happens. Like you said, like that 10-minute song. When it happens to be genius, well, Every time I sing them, I learn something new. I can't even believe I got to write them.
Wow. Well, and by the way, that since we are talking about that song with the D word in it, we also can tell the story that it was written for another singer-songwriter, composer, brilliant man from Roxy Music, Brian Ferry, but not in the way people will think.
Yeah, when I was his percussionist, he fired me. Do you know what he called me? Nobody will relate to this because you're a college station. I used to come into the rehearsal with a dress on. That's how I wore my dress that time. I would come in with a dress on and a headband looking like, I guess, a Ralph Lauren commercial, and he called me Margaret Thatcher.
Yeah, I don't understand what he was even, I don't get...
Well, I guess I thought I was so upright, but it's so funny but my image became, what my image was to what then I became when I actually came out with my own music. I think I was trying to be so perfect for him. I was hired to be his... Anyway, so he fired me. But when he fired me, I went home and wrote that song, Damn, I Wish I Was Your Lover. So I always attribute that experience to him firing me.
Do you have any Brian Ferry stories of when you were backing him on the drums? Any anecdotes, good or bad?
No, I just remember him looking at me and calling and saying she's a bit like Maggie
Thatcher. I mean, yeah, that's quite an anecdote to tell.
I know, it's so funny. And I was so young. I was truly a child.
At least he didn't say you look like Winston Churchill. That would have been really... Okay, well, we're talking with Sophie B. Hawkins here on the Dave's Gone By radio program of the air. I might as well ask, do you have any Baba Olatunji stories?
Yes, I do. He was wonderful. He was like a true grandfather. I lived with him and his godson. His godson was my lover, Gordy.
Oh.
I think we lived together. He was in and out of that apartment in the Ansonia in New York. We lived in Suite 477, which was Babe Ruth's suite and Stravinsky's suite.
Whoa.
And I got to live there with Olatunji and Gordy. Anyway, there's a lot of Africans in and out, Nigerians all the time, because that's how it is. And he said to me, I was so skinny, and I was practicing all the time. I mean, I was practicing 20 hours a day. And literally I was in a closet practicing so I wouldn't be bothered by everyone. And one day he stopped me at the door and he said, Sophie, someday I'm going to open the Village Voice and I'm going to see, there you are, playing every instrument. But if you don't eat, you'll never make it. Food is life.
Very nice. Very good. Yeah, I mean, you should eat a little chicken soup. At least once a day. That was...
It was like my Jewish grandmother. But it affected me so deeply, Rabbi, I can't even tell you.
Oh, that's
He
lovely.
was nurturing. He cared. Nobody else gave a damn. Everybody else thought it was sexy to be so skinny, and he really saw I was wasting away.
Well, you did mention in other interviews that it wasn't just that you were so intently concentrated on your music and that you didn't have time to eat or think about it. You've had some eating disorders during your life.
Done your homework. I never want to bore people with all my issues, but that was true. That he recognized that. So you're even going to a deeper level, Rabbi, because he recognized that and he wanted to help me, and he did.
Well, you're still a rather skinny and beautiful person, by the way. But how did you conquer it? Is it a battle you fight still every day, or is it so long in the past food is no big deal?
No, I think I can help. If anyone listening has an eating disorder, I think I can help. What happened when I was 28 years old? I actually don't battle it with it because this is what I did. I said to myself, the most important, and I was successful by 28. I had 2 major albums and hits and blah, 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 and been around the world. I said to myself in my New York apartment, I was sitting on the fire escape with my cat, and I said, Sophie, mental health is the most important thing as you get older. It's the only important thing. You have to repair yourself spiritually and mentally so you have a really good life. Otherwise, it will be a nightmare. And I feel like addictions were playing into that non-mental health part. So what I did was I said to myself, nothing has worked for you that you've done, OA or this thing or that thing, therapy, none of it has worked. You know what you're going to do, Sophie? Every time you want to act out with your eating disorder, you're going to do something good for yourself, something loving. So I wrote a list of what I would really love to do for myself. I mean, even simple things like making Indian lemonade or buying lilacs. And every time I wanted to, every time I wanted to act out, I made myself do something good for myself. And it worked. At 28 years old, I stopped, and I've never done it again. And when I had my child, when I was pregnant, I worried. God, is the stress of this new life, is this going to make me act out? And I didn't. because I had gotten to the point, and I think I know addictions have part to do with the frontal lobe, and I think they're not always a spiritual and a mental thing. They seem to think that they have a place in the brain. Do you know that, Rabbi?
This I did not. I
just read about it. There's so much research that it's really the front part of the brain.
Well, the pleasure center. There's this lobe that you're feeding.
Yes, and you can't, and real true addicts can't control it. Like when you look at the brain of a Coke addict versus a brain that...
Of a Pepsi addict, for example, yes.
Exactly, very different, exactly. So anyways, I'm not talking about addressing that part of it, but I do know what worked for me, and I come from addicts beyond hereditarily. Everyone was an alcoholic, drug addict, everything. So I come from addicts, which is why it probably is genetic. So I really had to fight very hard. But that was the thing, and still the thing that works most. When I want to do something bad for myself, I know that it's bad, and I say, do something good, and it always works, even if it's something as simple as lying down with my dogs.
Okay. I mean, it makes sense. You're soothing another part of you, and then pushing yourself away from the one thing.
Yes, and then you're getting in touch with it. Why am I so sad? Because when we act out as addicts, we're trying to fix something that's never going to be fixed that way. So you've got to find another way to get into your own heart.
Were you ever addicted to anything else besides...
Oh, for moments, but the eating disorder really was strong with me. I mean, I did alcohol for a long time. When I was 14, I stopped everything. I drank and I smoked pot and I did Quaaludes and Coke and everything.
Whoa.
But when I started playing drums, I was actually 14 years old. I was pretty old. And the moment that I started playing drums, I stopped everything except my eating disorder.
Wait a minute. So you were Coke, Quaaludes, all the pot that when you were 10, 11, 12?
Well, Quaaludes and Coke from 12, 13, 14, and then at 14 I stopped. But drinking and pot, I tried pot when I was 6.
Wait, how did you get your hands on pot when you were 6? When you could go to Colorado now and get it, but how did you do it then?
Well, my Aunt Linda, who's actually wonderful, she's not alive anymore, but she's the one who got me in touch with my drum teacher at 14. She made us pot brownies, and when we got off the plane from New York we went to Big Sur to visit her when I was 6, and my sister was 7, and my brother was 5, and that's what she gave us.
What the hell?
I know, it was a weird time.
I mean, did she warn you before, hey, try this will make you feel...
She just did it, she was in a weird cult.
Gewalt. What the hell? I don't believe what a lie. I'm not even talking about. I mean, you must have had a pretty heavy childhood with two parents who were both alcoholics. So were they abusive, or were they just not mentally there for you?
Yeah, I think they weren't spiritually, emotionally, or mentally there. But there was many. I have to say, there's also many such great qualities. If they hadn't have had that other darkness. So I can't really throw them under the bus, because all of us kids are great. Me and my brother and sister are really wonderful now, and we're sober too, by the way.
Oh, well, yes, thank you. I mean, you're not in an AA program. You've done it for yourself, or...
No, because my thing was eating, and I did heal myself with that. And my thing is never... Like, I could drink a half a glass of wine, be totally drunk, and never want any more.
Good. Good.
No, I'm good. But
which is rough on if you become Jewish, that becomes difficult on Passover, because you have to have 4 half glasses of wine.
Oh, well, that would be okay. I would just fake it. I mean, but now you see why I'm more drawn to the Judaism, because it's so rock solid in some ways. But yet with debate, and there's always room for growth and individuality, but there's some solid traditions there.
There's absolutely room for growth in Judaism. In fact, I have a growth under my leg that I have to have a doctor look at.
You're so funny.
Not too good. We're talking, by the way, with Sophie B. Hawkins, the singer, the songwriter, and also the self-help person, because she was able to help herself. Now, let me ask you something that you were working on with a big Broadway star, one of the biggest.
Oh, I love that.
Kristen Chenoweth.
Yeah.
I guess a friend of yours. And by the way, Dave, who is the producer of this radio program, he interviewed her last year for a magazine and said she was one of the funniest, most delightful people that he had ever interviewed in the hundreds and thousands of them that he has done. So you can tell her that if you see her. But what's happening with this musical that you were collaborating on with Kristen Chenoweth?
Yes, I was the composer and the songwriter. So what happened was we did our reading, our 29-hour reading, which in New York, if everyone doesn't know, you get to a point with the book and the music where you're able to hire actors and they rehearse for 29 hours, and then you put it up in front of producers and investors, and we got to that point, and it was pretty successful. And Kristen herself said that the music was 90% there, but then some issues with the producers and maybe non-agreement with the book writers, so it just got to a yellow light. It stalled. However, so that's what happened with that. It hasn't been produced yet on Broadway, but it was 3 years worth of amazing work, and I have amazing songs from it. So it's like I can keep going with the songs from that, or whatever. I mean,
have you tried maybe the York Theater Company or the Vineyard or one of the off-Broadway places?
Well, yeah. I mean, it's always something with Broadway, and usually what they say is the book. So as the composer, as a songwriter, I have nothing but great material that came out of it from my point of view. But I have to move on until somebody figures out how to fix that book, or and.
What was the show? What is the show about?
I'm not allowed to say because apparently it's still in the works. I'm not really allowed to talk about it.
Okay. Well, who's the book writer, by the way? Who's the?
Well, one of them is Thomas Meehan.
Oh my God, Thomas!
I know.
The Annie guy, the producers, yeah.
Can you believe it? And Annie, he wrote Annie.
Right. Yeah.
And Rocky. But so, anyways, I had a great experience and made great friends. But I'm moving on until that ship moves again.
Absolutely. No, totally. And also, with all these things you're doing, with writing musical, working on this new album, the concerts that you do, which, by the way, reminding people that she will be at Rockwood Music Hall, downtown on Allen Street, on this Thursday, December 18th. Do go get your tickets, by the way. But beside all that, Sophie B. Hawkins, you're raising this 6-year-old boy. How do you have this life as a single mom now, and be a creative person and a musician and do what you have to do?
Yeah, it's interesting. Well, having one child is totally doable because I've got him in a great public school in New York. He is after school till 5, so I walk him to school at 8, and I don't have to pick him up till 5. And I shouldn't say don't have to because I miss him actually every day.
Aww.
And I so love him, and he's really, really inspiring. I have to tell you, Rabbi, he is the wisdom in my life. He is a spiritual rock for me.
Huh.
So
maybe you should start bringing him to Hebrew school now.
I know.
Get him started.
He helps me in every way without even knowing it. So I would say that he adds to my life in every way. He doesn't take away from it. And also, he's 6 now, so he has so many friends. And he's such himself. And he also, as he says, he loves his downtime. He loves his private time. So he doesn't really demand that much. And by the way, I'm afraid of when he doesn't demand anything because I love spending time. Like when we come home and do his, he gets in the door, he keeps doesn't even take his coat off. I make him wash his hands. He sits down and he wants to do his homework right away.
Whoa.
I know, he's crazy.
He wants to do the whole... Well, I mean, getting it...
He wants to get it done. He's smart, actually. He wants to get it done. He wants to get on with his night. He wants to have fun, so he wants to get it done. And I sit there and I do it with him every night. It's such a blessing.
It is. Good. So, but let me ask, is it... Is there a social life, too? Because you're single now. Is there a man or a woman or something?
There could be, either or both, but there's not at the moment, but not because I'm not interested. I'm very attracted to certain people, but I'm also really focused on the right people. And I had a lot of mishigas. When I left L.A., I lived in Venice, California for 17 years, and then that relationship ended. So I'm really focusing on rebuilding my life and also learning what mistakes I made, and I'm correcting myself. I'm correcting a lot of things, and I'm also just having fun. The thing, Rabbi, too, with being my age right now, I really want to have fun. I don't want to get involved in anybody's heavy crap.
That's fair. But the problem is, at your age, everybody has heavy crap. I mean, you don't consider your child heavy crap, but to most people, they're all going to be divorced, married, they've suffered deaths, they suffered... I mean, when you're in your 40s, etc., crap is just there. It's kind of hard not to...
But you're right. But maybe I know people who are a little older than me, so they're teaching me to have fun. My friends are teaching me to have fun.
So are you doing a bucket list stuff, like skydiving and that sort of thing?
It's weird that you just said that. My son asked me last night, so we were reading in bed. And then he said, what are the 8 things you want to do before you die? My son asked me this.
Well, and what did you tell him?
I didn't even have 8 things.
Well, you've done most of them, I'm sure, but what was 1 or 2?
I said, I want to build a house with you.
Oh.
That overlooks the ocean with a pool and a great yard. That we never have to leave. In other words, we don't have to sell it ever.
Well, that's, at some point he'll want to, you gotta let him go. I mean, he's only 6 now, but...
Leave, but I won't have to be pushed out. It will be a house that I can afford to keep.
Good.
I've built houses before, but then I always had to sell them. So I said that. I want to paint. I want to write. I want to travel with you, I said to my son. And I couldn't think of much. I want to get a Labrador and a Golden Retriever. Just simple things. And then that was it. I couldn't even think of 8. Because I think I really like my life.
Well, don't you have you said you have dogs already. What kind of dogs you got?
I have little long-haired miniature dachshunds.
You're not going to believe this, but the producer and the host of this radio program, he and his wife have 2 dachshunds as well.
Oh, wow. I love dachshunds.
Aren't they the best?
They are the best.
They're not miniatures. They're called tweenies. They're sort of strange and in-between kind of dachshunds.
Oh, neato.
They're not teeny. They're not. How much do yours weigh?
Oh, mine are 10 pounds each.
Oh, those are tweenies too.
Oh, they're really tweenies? Oh, well, they're perfect.
Yes, aren't they?
Travel with us everywhere. My son adores them. We bring them everywhere.
Well, yeah, they're wonderful. So why do you need a lab and a golden?
Well, because I think my son needs a friend like that. Like, when a young boy has a bigger dog, like a Lassie type, they can roam the woods and they can go swimming, and if they are, they can have a real pal.
I get that. I do understand.
Can't wrestle with the dachshunds. He's too big.
Oh, even at 6 years old, he could hurt the dog if he does that.
My son is 65 pounds. He's almost as tall as me. He's crazy.
Oh, okay. Wow, well, you're pretty tall, aren't you? Or you seem so.
Yes, and my nephews and nieces are all 6'4", 6'5", so my son's going to be very tall.
Nothing wrong with that. I'm unfortunately incredibly short, but that's my hell in life. What can I tell you?
But the good thing about being short is you can fit on planes. I worry for these kids who are so tall now, and they make the planes smaller and smaller.
I know JetBlue is suddenly crunching everything down and taking everything away. Pretty soon we'll all be hanging on the wings. Outside of it, planes will be shaped like a pencil, and everybody will just be gripping outside the plane with their fingers as it's flying 30,000 feet.
That's a funny cartoon.
I can see that. And we're talking, as I said, with the delightful Sophie B. Hawkins. Let's talk a little more music stuff, since we haven't really talked that much about it. So, for example, what songs are on your iPod at the moment?
Oh, there's a lot of good songs on my iPod. Oh, you know what? I wish I could turn on my computer. I just found all these new songs the other day, and I can't remember their names. But did you ever hear Freshly Ground?
I'm afraid I have not.
Okay, I have to say that I love Mary Lambert, the song Secrets, and I love I Couldn't Change Even If You Wanted Me To, and I love those songs. And I like some Philip Phillips. And let me see who else.
Wow, I am completely at sea, I must admit. I mean, I was hoping you would say Shlomo Carlebach or perhaps Eddie Cantor, but these names are throwing me. I'm old.
Okay, well, I want to say a name, and I wrote it down because I just heard it. It was so amazing. And I think if somebody knocks, Will Knox, I think it is. Oh, my God, the most amazing, Knox. I wish people would look at that.
I remember Buggy Knox from Party Doll, but that was a very long time ago. Will Knox, okay.
Who's Buggy Knox?
But remember, I want to be your party doll.
Right.
Die, party doll. Yeah, but that's 100 years ago. Speaking of years ago, so who were the people, the musicians who musically influenced you? I guess Joni was in there, and David Bowie certainly.
Oh, I hated women singers. I hated women singers till my 30s.
Wow, what did you hate about them?
I have no idea, everything. I just hated their voices, and I hated what they sang about. I only liked, Bob Dylan or David Bowie classic songs. I didn't understand women, and I didn't relate to what they were singing about. And then when I got into my 30s, especially when I moved to California, I really started to understand and appreciate and love women singers. And my son loves Joni Mitchell, so that was helpful.
Oh, that's good. Now let me. This kind of surprised me when I first read about the theatrical show that you performed in, not knowing certain things. I was like, well, really? She did that? I don't get it. And then I listened to your most recent album, The Crossing. And within 30 seconds, I'm like, well, she sounds a little like Janis Joplin. Boom. Boom. Struck me right there. So what was it like? A lot of actresses have played Janis Joplin. What was it like for you?
Well, it was amazing because I do everything with such vigor. This is the most amazing part about playing her, was studying to play her. Because I said to myself, how am I going to sing like Janis Joplin? I have nothing in common with her. I have zero in common with her voice, right?
Well, I thought so too until I heard The Crossing, but okay, yes.
Okay, so then what I did was I went into my studio and I said, okay, and I read some biographies about her, and then I said, I'm 9 years old, I'm Janis Joplin, and I'm listening to Big Mama Thornton, for instance.
Oh, yeah.
And so I pretended I was her from 9, 12, 15, 20, and I took myself through her life and the music she listened to, because luckily there's so much that's written about her. And, her mother trained her as an opera singer, so she actually had a very beautiful soprano voice. She may have even been a coloratura, and her mother was a coloratura, and an amazing singer. So she trained with her mother since she was 6 years old. So she had an actually beautifully trained voice, and that's why she was able to do what she did. And had she not drunk or been drinking, I think that she would have maintained her voice. So anyway, and then I figured out how she got that sound of like her voice going through an amplifier in her own throat. I figured all this stuff out by listening to her chronologically and being her. That was the most interesting part, and I learned everything she did, and I also learned everything she studied. So as an artist, it was a wonderful experience of growth. Then I got on the stage and had to be an actress and be her, and that was very painful and it was a great experience. So first I played what I thought was her emotions, which were, she was very funny, but she was very sad, and she's very nervous and sad in many of her interviews, like the great Dick Cavett, where she's extremely funny, and she's very masculine in her brain. Like, her jokes are very funny. But then her physicality is very nervous and shy. So I played that, but then there was a point in the run where I realized the only way to really play Janis Joplin, who's so sad, has a life, because I killed myself on stage, is to laugh. Is to really play the humor and play the lightness of everything. And then I really got playing Janis Joplin and being Janis Joplin. That's what I think the key was. When I realized I can't play what's really going on, I have to play the humor and the lightness and how she got through. And then I think I did great. I think everyone loved my performances. I got great reviews, but that's when I really started to understand what acting is. Even like, you go through the darkest tunnels, and it's only when you get out of the tunnel, which takes work, you start realizing what you're doing.
And actually, the thing that they say about acting is you never play emotion one way or the other. You play the physical activity, and you play off. Well, unfortunately, you didn't have another person to play off, so you have to work with yourself. But
no, you're right.
Yeah.
Guess what? True, Rabbi. It's so true. But you can hear all those things. But when you get on stage, you tend to play the emotion because it's so compelling. Like, you cry when you feel like crying, and it's the most distracting thing in the world. And then I realized I had to be so disciplined, and it actually helped me. It relaxed me as a performer in general, because I realized that the less I do, the more impact it has. And it also helped me as a singer. I'm so much more still.
Yes.
Stage.
Let them come to you.
Thank you, Rabbi. I have to be reminded, but that's true. But these things are all things I've learned by doing the opposite.
Well, and speaking of doing things, you've been in your career, Sophie B. Hawkins, because you have a certain platform for being, since you are well known, that you've taken political sides in issues, among them politics, and you campaigned for Hillary Clinton a few years back.
Yes, I love her.
Assuming that she's still the presumptive Democratic candidate, which may not be the case any longer, but will you be out there stumping for her again?
Yes, I really would love to work for her again. Do you think she's really going to run? How can she deal with that again?
Well, she's been in politics for, 30 years almost now? If she's not used to it, then she doesn't belong. In politics, she doesn't belong president, with all due respect. If you can't take the worst possible brickbats at this point, then you better get out of the kitchen.
I think she'd be good.
Okay, good. Well, yeah, but you have to convince other people. You know, she was a fait accompli 2 years ago. And then you know how news cycles change and everything changes in America overnight. And a month ago, the whole country suddenly swung Republican. When the hell did that happen?
I know, that was weird. But, it's so interesting, Rabbi, because I'm not actually looking at the news and I'm not reading the newspaper as much at this moment. Simply because I don't have time, and also because I think I got saturated. To be honest with you, doing the political thing really turned me off. I really stopped believing in everyone, and I really thought, the only thing that matters is how we behave in our lives and how we behave in our neighborhoods, because these people they just change with the wind.
I completely agree with you, and I understand this disenchantment. We just have to also remember that invariably, all candidates are horrible. You somehow have to find the least horrible one.
I think you're right. You find the least horrible one, but you've always got to be active in our own lives. Like, in other words, what really made me upset was when I'd be sitting at a table and all my friends and family would be arguing. And I thought, we should all be on the same side because we really do believe in the same things. Why are we arguing over these candidates who don't even care about us? They're not going to do anything on our behalf. We're not the 1%.
Yeah, I think it's kind of also interesting that you were fairly anti-Obama, and not just recently, but before everybody turned on Barack Obama.
Yeah,
so do you now kind of feel sorry for him almost?
I do. Actually, I'm so backwards. I have to tell you all the ways that I'm backwards. I didn't like him when he was running, for so many reasons that I think were all legitimate. But then I feel he went to the center, like 2 years in, and I started to like him. And I actually started running around saying, I really like this guy. I like what he said. I like what he's doing. And then everyone else said, he's horrible. And all my liberal friends said that we don't like what he's doing. And I said, geez, I'm just so out of fashion because now I like him. Now everyone hates him.
Sounds like me. Just 25 steps behind the time is my thing. I gotta tell you. But that's you can't. The person who is wonderful in certain ways is going to be crappy in others.
Well, you're right. But also what I don't like is when people believe all this. Like, there's things that I loved about Obama, but they weren't the things that people recognized. They thought all this crap about hope. That was such crap, and all this stuff about Wall Street. He's so with Wall. I didn't understand how people didn't see who he was and what was really good about him, but they saw all this fake stuff and they bought it. Then he could get away with everything.
See, this is why you should also be Jewish, because Jews know there is no hope and nothing ever is going to change. We live with that.
But yeah, and that's why you make your day as good as possible, and you make other people. That's the whole thing, Rabbi. And anyways, so I don't feel like I'm actually behind people. I feel like I actually see things before them, and then I can't believe they're buying it. But then I find something good. What you just said, since there's no hope and things don't change, I find something to like about somebody, and that comes gradually after I see everything that isn't right about them.
Hitler had a way with colors when he was painting. I do have to say that. He made a nice landscape occasion. I'm kidding. I'm just joking. There's something nice about it. Anyway, and one other... just teasing there. But one thing that you can and have gotten behind is GLBTQ... I don't know if there are any other letters there. Issues. And being out front and being very open about your sexuality and your quote-unquote omnisexuality. And not just being comfortable with that, but being... outspoken about it. Are you thrilled that gay marriage is now almost legal everywhere?
Yeah, but I hope that people don't get married because it's legal. Marriage is such an awful thing, and I think that most gay people shouldn't get married, and I'll tell you why. It's not because of the same-sex part, it's because of the business part. Marriage doesn't work for one person always, and it always doesn't work for the most innocent person. So... I've been through this now. I had a breakup, and I really think, and I wasn't even married.
You weren't married, right, yeah.
So I have to say, I would, if I got married ever again, I would have the prenuptial that says none of us get anything. And we walk away completely, and we can't ever sue each marriages end, but gay marriages end really fast. They end after about 2 years, so I wish gay people would just do this. Date for 5 years, don't have children, get married when you really know you want to be together, and then get married in a state where it's equal at least, where one person isn't going to have to take care of the other, because it's never fair. And this whole thing about custody, I mean, everything bad about marriage with heterosexuals is now being visited on gay people. It's the worst.
Wow, I was not expecting his response at all, but at least you're open and honest, but you have, not to get too deep into things, but you weren't married and you still had sort of was it a custody battle or was there no issue?
Luckily, my partner didn't want custody and didn't want to take care of my child in any way.
Okay.
And never did. But had there been an issue, boy, I would have been up Schitt's Creek. Because I am the mother, and I do take full care, and it would have killed me inside and out. I wouldn't be standing right now if I had had any issue with it. And so thank God my partner didn't. But most people do suddenly claim custody because it's terrible. When they claim whatever they claim. And the thing is, anyways, I think marriage is something that becomes divisive, and then the lawyers get involved, and nobody wins. So why people get married, and this is the only thing, gay people had it really good. They didn't have to get married.
That's true. They could have they could have open relationships if they wanted to. It was just they did what they wanted to do as long as they were true to themselves and open to themselves about what they wanted and expected. You know, if you agree with your partner, okay, these are the rules, and we're going to keep to our rules, and it has nothing to do with New York State, and it has nothing to do with or whatever state you're in, or it's between us, and we can change the rules if things change. That's kind of the ideal, I think.
I think it is the ideal. What you're saying is so great. It's so Jewish. It's that there is a structure, but really we're individuals. So how do we make this work for us? Because you're right. Some people like this and some people like that. And by the way, people always grow and change. We never allow our partners to change, and especially in marriage. Well, you said you do this, and I thought you were that, and this is what I expected of you. Well, by the way, you can't expect someone to stay the same. They should, even though you say nothing changes, but people really do grow. You have to let them grow.
I think that's absolutely correct. And how did you grow? Looking at the positive side of the relationship that you were in for a long time, how did you grow in a good way?
So much positive. Okay, let me tell you, there was so much positive, and I really can't, all the negative will pass, and I really have nothing but good things to say about this woman.
Good. Okay.
And that's totally true, and all the negative things just came with stress and blah, 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 blah. And like I just said, expectations not being met and whatever. And surprises, somebody falls in love with somebody else. What are you going to do? It's allowed. It happens. Unfortunately, I was the person on the other side who wanted to stay in the relationship and wanted the family for our child and so forth and so on. But you know what? In the end, it did help me. I'm glad. Whatever. I don't know if I'm glad, but I accept it, and my life is better now, believe it or not.
Do you think it was a mistake to let this person do a documentary? Was that...
Yes, I think, that's so interesting you asked that. You're so good, Rabbi. It's almost as if you've known me for years. I so many things about that documentary that aren't finished. I think the documentary was her view, what she wanted to make people see about me and my family. I honestly think only 50% of it is true. I think she's a director and a creator, and she directed and created this thing. And I think me and my family tend to be so innocent. And yes, we have many problems and many secrets, but obviously we let them be seen.
Not that many secrets. I've gotten to most of them, I hope.
Exactly.
You've never burned down any houses or anything, or anything like that.
You're so correct. You're so correct. So basically, but I think the documentary was so biased against my father, and I used to argue with my partner about this all the time. But what I shouldn't have done is I maybe shouldn't have let the documentary. But I wasn't strong enough. I mean, she's very forceful. She's a genius. She's brilliant, and all those things I learned from her too. On the other hand, I wasn't strong enough sometimes to really stand for what I believed, and that was a big mistake.
Okay. Wow. Well, it has certainly not been a mistake. Talking with the wonderful Sophie B. Hawkins here on Dave's Gone By. I do want to remind people one more time that she is going to be at Rockwood Music Hall on Allen Street. That's somewhere in that Lower East Side. I wish they would keep the numbers lower down, don't you? I can find anywhere in New York after like 2nd Street or 2nd Avenue, but once they change the numbers into these names, forget it. I can wander around the Lower East Side for hours and not find the street. But you find it, Allen Street. It's this Thursday, December 18th at 9:30 in the evening. Are you on acoustic? Are you backed by a band? What is it?
Yes, it's actually going to be so exciting. It's both. I'm doing some of the show acoustic, some of the show I have a band, like the new material, and then some of the show I'm actually going to do some of the musical I wrote, which I'm very happy because it's not been heard by people before. And I even have guest singers, like I have Naomi Less coming up and doing a Hanukkah.
The Hanukkah song, yay!
Isn't that great? I wanted to do Hatikva, and she said, Sophie, that's divisive. Don't do Hatikva.
Whoa. If you have liberal Jews really super liberal Jews in the audience, it might be. But you know what? I'm glad you told me that. You goddamn go and do that song.
Don't you love that song?
I'm not just saying I love that song. I'm a pretty heavy, staunch Zionist kind of a guy.
Wow, that's so beautiful.
And I think Israel, should be. It is a Jewish state. It's a tiny little piece of land just for my people. And we don't want to mistreat anybody else, but if you don't want to be there, don't be there. Go live elsewhere if you're not happy with this little shtickle of land that's just for, people who came out of the Holocaust and their children and everybody else. I'm just saying. So Hatikva means a lot to me. Play that damn song.
I understand that perfectly. And by the way, just in case, it's the show is right near Russ and Daughters and Katz's.
Katz's!
I know,
and which is not kosher, by the way, but still, Katz's!
Because Russ and Daughters is.
I don't know this, Russian Daughters.
Oh, you know Russ, R-U-S-S, and Daughters. Oh, it's so yummy.
What kind of food? What is that?
It's all totally Jewish food, and it's kosher.
Ooh! This I did not know. Still, they cannot equal Katz's pastrami. There's something about Katz. Oh, you've had a pastrami sandwich at Katz's. I'm talking food. I hope that's not a bad thing.
No, I always talk food. I always only talk food.
I think, but good. Okay, but in moderation.
No, you're talking about my eating. I don't have an eating disorder. My eating disorder is the other way. I eat all the time, and that's why I think I'm so skinny, because I burn it off.
Oh, there you go. If you eat little portions all through the day, that's the best way. The metabolism digests. So you have maybe a quarter of a Katz's sandwich at 10 in the morning, then a little chicken soup, then another quarter of the Katz's sandwich at maybe 1 in the afternoon, then a pickle, maybe at 2 o'clock for a nosh. You can portion it out that way.
You are so cute.
Well, I try. And you are adorable, Sophie B. Hawkins. Let me ask you last question before we let you go, and we thank you so kindly for your time as well as your music. What is the process for you? If you sit down at a keyboard, or I guess sometimes guitar too, and words first, music first, something together, it's different with every song, what?
Yeah, it is, but it might be different and it might not. I think where there's a pattern where I do tend, so say I'm writing in my journal and a lot of thoughts come out, and then I will meander over to the keyboard, say the next morning, or the piano rather, and then I start playing, and it is that the chords evoke certain things, but then I'll get something that seems really meaningful, like a line, and then I build upon that. So basically what it is there's something brewing, and I have to get the music and the lyrics, and they help each other. They push each other along. They're really part and parcel of each other. Although I have to say, when you take away the music, the lyrics stand on their own, but somehow the music helps me write the lyrics.
Well, I have to ask, what is the most recent song that you've written or been working on? What's it about? Was it a day ago, a week ago? What was it?
No, it was 2 days ago I finished a song, and it was really deep. It was about not being a martyr anymore, and not wanting to take care of somebody who lies, and it's also speaking to a part of myself, wanting to rise up out of that part that, when people go and they go into church and there's nothing in the.
Well, I don't know about going into church, but the other part I
This is
understand.
an example of martyrs. They try to find themselves in someone else's story, and I told you I got lost in someone else's story for a long time. they try and find themselves in someone else's story, but, you know, at the end you can't make it work. You have to just really take complete responsibility. And that's what that song's about. Of course, it's not intellectual like that. It's very emotional, saying, you know, I'm tired of taking care of you and all that, whatever. So that's what that's about. But it uses imagery from, like, a homeless man and a woman crying and all that.
Okay. Now, this song, you finished it, you say, 2 days ago. Is it finished? Is it finished second draft? Is it what? And
that's a great question. Well, it's a piano vocal with some, you know, rhythm beats or whatever. And so I basically think when I start working on it with the band for the show at Rockwood, or if it's too many songs, then I'll work on it with a producer. Then I don't know. You know, it may need to be revised and made better or something. But I don't know. I have to put it away. See, that's why. And right now, at this moment, I'm working on another song. So away it goes.
Oh, mit Mazel. And well, again, keep working on those Hanukkah songs. You don't have to write just one. We need to catch up to the Goyim with all those Christmas novelty songs that we hear in Rite Aid a million times.
Isn't that amazing how many Christmas songs there are?
And all we have, we meaning you soon when you convert, all we have is Draggle, 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 and the Adam Sandler thing. We need more. Work with this Lassiter, is it? What's her name? Naomi Less. Well, make her do more. More Hanukkah songs, work on songs for Passover, even Yom HaAtzmaut. Really go out there and you know, do your best with that.
Okay, good. Thank you.
You do know your Hebrew. Well, Bevakasha, delightful Sophie B. Hawkins. Thank you so much, everybody. Go see her. Go to her website, sophiebhawkins.com. See her Thursday night at Rockwood Music Hall. And, of course, look for her new album when it comes out in a little while. And look for her spirit everywhere, because you can see it's such a beautiful, sweet spirit. Thank you, Toda, to you, Sophie B. Hawkins.
Thank you. Lehitraot.
Lehitraot and Shalom.
Shalom.